I have Michael Fredricks with Skeps today. Michael, thanks for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I am interested in hearing your story because you kind of touched on it a second ago. What is Skeps and how did you get into the position you're in today?
Well, Skeps is interesting because it's certainly not my origin story where I've ended up. It's a technology solution, a software for contractors. There's plenty of softwares out there that contractors use to run their business, control their inventory, their routing of technicians. There's a lot of things out there today that didn't exist when I started over 30 years ago in the home improvement industry. What's important about this particular product and the name Skeps is probably important to touch on that as well, that Skeps is actually a descriptive word in the beekeeping world. It's kind of a reference to that beekeeping mentality of everybody working together for a common goal, which is a great description of this product because we literally went to the market for multi-years. The company's been in existence for 9 years, started out supporting the banks that support the financing for improvement contractors to make sure the consumer is able to get the project completed. But it has evolved over the last three years by asking contractors about how the customers pay today, what they would like to see, and of all the other solutions out there, what are the fleas on each one of those dogs, and how can we solve them? So we put 3 long years into developing something to solve all of the problems echoed to us by guys that have to live this experience every day. It's an exciting time for me. It's a new career path as well, which is exciting. And I currently lead all business development for Skeps. Been here about a year now, a little over a year. So I got to have a hand in developing this product with my personal experience as well. And did you
Nice.
want me to jump into what that experience
Yeah,
might
yeah.
have looked?
What I would love to hear your experience 30 years ago.
Yeah, so anybody on this podcast listening that was around 30 years ago, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a time before cell phones. There was a time before personal computers, before the internet. Now, mind you, we weren't in the Stone Age when I started in like 1990, but when as a sales rep for home improvement brands, and I'm talking the big national brands of that time, were your Sears Home Improvements, Service Master, Elegant International, Empire today, Protection One Security System, which is now ADT, part of ADT. These are all companies that I have led their national sales teams at one point or another. But I started out in 1990 as a guy in a car being dispatched to a home to find out what the customer's needs were. And back in these days, to get financing was impossible. If you got to the home and it was a needs-based purchase, and sometimes a roof is, and the customer doesn't save for a rainy day. The typical consumer doesn't have the money for a new heating and air conditioning system or a roof, which can run seven to $20,000 depending on the situation. So you have to have alternative payment methods available. In those days, if they didn't have the money and they wanted to do financing, you had arrangements with your local bank. You had to fill out paperwork, the white sheet, the yellow sheet, the pink sheet, and then you had to drive back to your office and fax that in to a manual human being underwriter who had a stack on their desk of people that they had to research and underwrite this loan to see if they were creditworthy. This process could take weeks. Right now, if you got a big gaping hole in your roof that a raccoon chewed through, you might not have weeks to wait. And heating and air conditioning in Arizona, might be an issue if you got to wait 2 weeks
Hmm.
and 100. So it was not ideal. I will say that when I entered this world, we had pagers, so I was able to get a pager notification to call a customer. But I watched that situation specifically at Sears, which kind of turned into a credit company with the Sears credit card, right? Really pushing that to help customers complete their purchases. And that started to evolve into smaller finance companies backed by a tier one bank or just a large federally regulated bank to speed up the process. Like, how could we do that? And there was, I don't even remember some of the brand names like Conseco and like Green Tree, or there were some interesting names out there. But being with a large national company at that time, we were introducing things like a full blown sales process that could be done with repeatable brilliance with every customer to build a brand, right? You had multi steps, a proper greeting, building rapport, doing a proper needs analysis, those kind of steps of the process. And when you got to the payment section, we were selling the price of the job. What we learned at Sears very quickly is if you're selling the payment, which is a much smaller number than the over, it would be a much more successful experience with that customer in their home. They can determine when they pay it off, right? So
Mm.
it's just made it easier for the customer to get to that, yes, let's get the work done with this guy who can help me today. So, I mean, if you flash forward right around 2008, 2009, for those of you that remember, we had a huge economic crash here in the United States. The housing bubble burst, and technology was starting to get fantastic. And coincidentally, that's the time when a company called GreenSky, which a lot of people on this podcast would be familiar with, came out with the first mobile app on a phone where you can do the whole application process with the customer, and it would be sent somewhere for an automated algorithm to determine the credit worthiness based on debt to income ratio, FICO scores, all the good stuff that, loans are based upon. And that was industry changing. Now, unfortunately, the industry came to a screeching halt for about 2 years, 2008 to 2010, but they emerged with the only tech that could accomplish that. In a very rapid amount of time, they became the app that contractors use, a massive market share grab. And then you saw companies like a Fortiva Financial go, who's not being served? People that are not, their credit challenged would be a nice way to put it. They're not particularly a tier one credit customer. So they entered the space in 2015. And that was around that 25 years that I had been in the field with all those big brands that I had mentioned. Just love this industry. And they came to me and said, we really need the field perspective. How do we introduce second look financing for credit charge customers? Can you come and help us build a software solution like a GreenSky, but behind GreenSky? If GreenSky turns it down, what happens next?
Mhm.
So we were able to create that space in home improvement. And in about a 3-year period, we were the dominant second look opportunity for customers that just didn't quite make the grade for a green sky approval, but they could also get a loan through, maybe higher interest rate, maybe shorter terms. It might be a cost affiliated to the contractor, but it was a 30% pickup in closing sales.
Mhm.
And so now you've got a first look and a second look that you're using. Well, how can you connect them? That it automatically goes from that first look turn down to that second look opportunity with that customer. So you started seeing integrations of first look and second look providers, but that gave some brilliant young people that are immersed in technology going, well, how do we automate that on a platform? Give them
Mm.
multiple first look lenders, multiple second looks to choose from. So you saw this evolution of platforms developing like that 2017, 18, until now, basically. There's still more newer platforms with cooler technology, but you're also relegated to the lenders they have agreements with. Those platforms charge lenders to be on the platform to get that business. You've got service software out there like a ProLine that they use on a daily basis. They don't want to have to leave that experience to go to
Mhm.
another app. Right. So how do you combine all of that and not charge the banks? Because interestingly enough, when you charge a bank to do something, they need to recoup that money by charging them, the contractor, a higher rate sheet to
Mhm.
accommodate, how many basis points that they're being charged to be a part of that. So those are just some of the problems that the larger enterprise level franchise groups, national footprint contractors were saying, it's costing us tens of millions of dollars a year for these financing issues. Can you fix this? So, Skeps spent, like I said, at least 3 years. Because we are a banking software first, facilitating consumer finance a lot in the home improvement space, we had to get federally and statewide regulatory compliant for our software to be used by a Citibank, a Bank of America, a Chase. So we had that, which none of these other platforms would have. So the customer's PII, or personal information, that we all now, as this is a high security issue for most companies,
Mhm.
we have that built-in protection. So it allowed us to do a lot more interesting things to solve those problems for these contractors and yet remain fully compliant from a regulatory perspective. So all of that came to a head. Gosh, we love the product. We kind of started selling an out of the box small version to test it in the marketplace, but then spent the last year developing this enterprise solution that could integrate with a software like ProLine, which will have all the banks in one place. So you're not just relegated. You can pick whoever you want. We got like 25 home improvement lenders on the platform. You get to pick and choose. But things like, if you're using multiple banks, how do you get the reporting? How do you get your
Mm.
metrics? KPI? How do you know if you're hitting your KPIs? The current state using a platform is you got to go to each one of those banks at the end of the month, and they have to send you a file. You have to combine those files, and then you have to make it pretty for the board deck that you have to present at the end of the month of
Mhm.
all of that fun work. So what we did is we even integrated the software directly into the banks to use them at will to control the offers your sales reps see, even down to the sales rep level. Could be one guy in Albuquerque is seeing something different than in New York if that's the way they want to manage it. But in real time, at any minute of the day, you can go in with however many banks that you're using and see all of those metrics. How many applications submitted? How many approved? All of that. When were they funded? Control things like staged funding. You control things like stipulations if they need to provide proof of home ownership. All of that stuff, all included in one spot, and we don't charge the banks. We behave like a CRM or any other software they employ and deploy to their
Mhm.
company to use to make their company better, more efficient, and give that customer the best experience possible. So that's why I was introduced to you, John, and invited to this conversation today.
I love it. Yeah, when I started in the roofing space I started a lot longer than actually working professionally. I was, building roofs at a young age. But 2009 was my first real job working for a roofing company, and that, like you said, the economy wasn't great then. I was fortunate to work with a really strong company, and we had actually record years those years, 2009 and 2010, because of the positioning in the market. But there was no financing. There was no technology. We didn't have a CRM. Everything was pen and paper. We were doing estimates in pen and paper. There was definitely no financing, or at least very, very rarely someone was financing. It was usually they're using a home equity line, something like that we weren't aware of, but it didn't really affect. It was a 100% retail organization. And then I moved, from nothing to being a sales rep, then moving to a different company, becoming a sales manager. All those things started to see technology being more and more important. Again, a lot of pen and paper still, and then started my business shortly after that. And I realized from the get go that my unique thing to help me grow was technology, and knew that we had to have not just organization, but actual tools to deploy. And for the first several years, I sold my business about a little more than a year ago. The last 2 years in business, from almost a decade, we did more financing in those 2 years than all the other 8 years combined.
Wow.
And it's not that we weren't offering it. It's that the cost of home services is much higher. And we had GreenSky from years and years ago. Years and years ago. We had GreenSky. Nobody wanted to use it. I think it was also a consumer issue as well. Roofing specifically is a little behind than, say, like another industry like HVAC. We just had our HVAC replaced 2 weeks ago. $20,000 HVAC. It's very common to be like, they give you the price, but it's a really small fine print. And then
Yeah,
it's the payment, just what you just said. It's the
sure.
payment and that's it. And I would imagine their close rate is north of 75% on something like this. They're going to make a decision at least within a week, probably 2 days. Really big HVAC company backed by PE, and they know how to do those processes. The sales process wasn't even that good. It didn't even have to be that good. It was the financing that makes it so easy. You're like, well, we have no AC. We have to have AC. There's a good, better, best option. Pick your payment.
Right.
That's how it goes. And for roofers watching this, I know there's a lot of pushback on this whole thing because it is relatively new for the roofing industry. Any type of offering financing, and it is also a challenge because it's a different type of selling and a different type of selling process. Sales process is different. We had to learn for about 2 or 3 years. We had to really hone in on when do you offer financing? Always, early, often, every time. You have to know when to do it all the time. And
Yeah.
that is something that the people that want to survive and thrive are going to have to learn how to offer financing for roofing services because it's not going to get any cheaper for roofs. They're still going to be, when I started, we're probably 4 or 5 times more expensive, the roofs that we build today.
Well, John, you
Tell
kind of
me.
remind me. You kind of remind me of myself, and that maybe our parents dropped us on our heads because when you get into roofing and heating and air conditioning, it's because you like the work. It's
Yeah.
it's good, honest way to make a living and a great living. And a
Yep.
lot of people don't understand how great of a living you can make in home improvement. It's the people interaction that
Yeah.
most of the people that I've worked with over the years don't gravitate towards that. They gravitate towards the mechanical part of the thought
Hmm.
process and working through and solving problems, not necessarily that relationship building. And as you're mentioning in roofing, I mean, it's a lot of times it's a needs-based purchase. A lot of time insurance is involved. So you don't get a chance to really build those skill sets of how to do a sales process with repeatable brilliance again and again to give that customer that high experience. But I think the biggest drawback for a lot of people is is that credit turn down.
Yep.
Right now, what do I do? This is the most uncomfortable thing. And to this day, I'm going on ride-alongs tomorrow with a national flooring company, and it's the most uncomfortable thing in the world. And that was one of the problems that they mentioned to us. Is like, how do we solve for this? Well,
Yep.
part of Skep's solution to that is we've integrated so deeply into all the 25 lenders that are available on the platform today. And by the way, we're adding more every day. The contractors say, "Well, can you add this credit union that we use in this
Sure.
one market?" Right. So we just constantly keep adding. But what we do is we 100% understand their approval algorithm and the buy box that they're interested in seeing. So if you have a GreenSky, for example, we know what that buy box is. If that customer's information in our technology doesn't fit that buy box, we do a pre-screen before it goes to any lenders. It's not going to go to GreenSky to get a turn down because we know it's already going to get a turn down. It's going to go to
Hmm.
the other lenders they selected that's going to offer an offer. So
Yep.
theoretically, you'll never have to have that conversation. Now, there's going to be instances where a customer is, there's absolutely nobody who's going to offer somebody a credit. And unfortunately, we can't solve for that. But what we've done is we've drastically reduced like 60, 70, 80% of that uncomfortable conversations that pop up when there was a blip in somebody's financial history. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's a huge conflict that we see as we're promoting financing and trying to help people as like consultative helping the industry. From my perspective, just helping roofers win is they'll get a kind of a third rate financing company that doesn't really do exactly what you just said, and they will feel like they never get approved. And it's because of the platform they're choosing to use, or maybe they don't qualify for a better platform. Whatever the reason be, I understand the pushback and the drawback behind doing that is they just never get approved and they have that awkward situation and then they can't help that customer. They can't make that sale. What are some that reminds me, what are some kind of guidelines that you are looking for as contractors, as you're looking for new customers? What are kind of like the basic guidelines you're looking for that could qualify to get on Skeps platform?
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because we started out, as I mentioned, an out of the box product that only had a couple lenders available. And yet what we were finding in the marketplace is that product, which had not been developed to the level that we have today, was just an also ran. There was other platforms that you could use that basically did the same thing, didn't solve any problems. Our customers were ones that were angry with the previous solution they were using, so they wanted to
Yep.
switch. Right. So today's customer that we're looking for, and this is interesting because we don't promote the name Skeps. Each one of our integrations is custom tailored to the sales process, the language, the branding of the company that's using it. So development work is quite expensive. We have a development team of over 100 people, and they are employees. They're not a third party, system. So we've grown into quite a good sized company just on that dev side. So what we're looking for, we're typically looking for your enterprise clients. I don't want to throw out any brand names, but you guys know that who's
Sure.
in multi-regional positions, or they're a national footprint, or it's a franchise organization. But we also partner with affiliated software groups that are like, we really love this solution. We want to integrate it. And it could become, John Delorier's, finance, piece of it.
Yep.
And we can open it up in iframes in the experience, or we can fully integrate. Everything is custom made for these big clients. So like if you're in a home, very rarely would you see a sales rep go through the process using whatever software, tablet, cell phone that they're using to guide themselves and the customer through the process, and they get the finance and click on it. They won't see Skeps. They'll see John Delorier,
Yep.
finance, and it's a seamless experience for both the sales rep and the customer. We're just behind the scenes, like I said, like your CRM or some other software that you employ on a monthly basis. and it's just part of your business structure. So that's our typical customers today. We've actually kind of even stepped away from our call center approach. We had a full call center calling individual contractors. And today we are working with the PE firms that you probably could list a ton. You probably sold
Sure.
your company for one, right? So those are the conversations that we're having today. And I don't want it to sound elitist because you could access it. We're working on big manufacturer relationships where they're promoting that as a value add loyalty program to the folks that buy from their distributors.
Yep.
So eventually it's going to be everywhere. And eventually all the other software companies are now scrambling to see how that they can mimic what we did. And we know it took 3 years to do it, right? So for
Yeah.
now, we are the ones breaking this new ground. And that's the typical customer that we're talking to today.
It makes sense. It's going in that direction. The quantity of companies will reduce, whether you like it or not. There's going to be in the roofing space, there's going to be new people popping up left and right, but customers demand, homeowners demand, it's more than a 5-star experience. They expect everything. And what you said about just the financing process is already kind of nerve-wracking to the homeowner and to the sales rep. We also identify, and I've experienced it personally, and my sales teams experience it personally, where you get to the financing part and it's confusing because you have a brand that you built. They know who you are, and then all of a sudden you're on another brand's page to get your financing done. It's really important, and it is a mental hurdle and roadblock when you have, some other logo that's sitting there, and you're like, "Who am I? Is this the right thing I'm supposed to be doing?" And you got to reduce those in all parts of the sales process. So I like that you guys are. I mean, nobody cares that our contractors are on ProLine. No homeowner cares that. They don't care. They're like, I just know that this contractor is communicating well. I know their quote explains my problem and gives a solution. They don't care. There's no little watermark of ProLine down there. There's no, that's really, really important.
Here's how roofers make it home for dinner every single night without losing a single sale, even when they're one-man shows. Automate your communication with ProLine, the only communication-first CRM for roofers. Because when you fix your communication, you'll sell more jobs. Your weekends will smell more like sunscreen and backyard barbecues than that crappy gas station coffee. And all you got to do is ask these roofers.
Or we had about 200% growth, and I attribute that to incorporating ProLine.
But just with one automation, I was able to get 25 Google reviews.
It's been absolutely insane how quickly we were able to grow.
Now, ProLine's not going to win the beauty pageant, but it will save your Saturday. Now, back to the show.
Well, one of the things that I've focused on, and I, now that I'm getting to this age, I kind of feel it's been a huge part of why I've been so successful and why I still remain excited about home improvements and services company to this day, is that I train guys to do all of this stuff in the home. And I've tried to change the mentality of the industry, and not just in roofing, but flooring. And as you've heard, HVAC and other positions that I've held, that it's not a roof. They're buying you, the person in there, and that experience, right? So that's really, I look at it as like a Broadway play that every home you go into, the curtain opens and you have to deliver that show with repeatable brilliance.
Sure.
Right. Whether that be shoe covers when you walk in the house to show their house respect, or you're using a laser pointer to show them things and explain things, anything that you can do to make your show better. And as you mentioned, if it's a seamless experience that nothing's changing during this, it's, yes, I'm using ProLine, but they just know it's John's software that he's using, and it goes straight fluidly into a software that it's not going to send it to a lender that's going to turn it down. That's not even going to be a discussion, right? The worst discussion is nobody wants us out of 25 lenders. They need to figure out something else. But we even have zero credit lenders. Mind you, the customer has to be willing to pay a very high interest rate. But John, you were in it 10 years. You can't prejudge that customer when you go in the house.
Nope, you definitely cannot.
I have been in homes with the most beautiful, Mercedes Benz. The wife's driving a Lexus truck, and their debt to income ratio is so high that they get turned down in the home. And I've been into rural homes. I grew up in the mountains of Pennsylvania by Gettysburg. So I've been in homes where there's literally cars that are on blocks in the front yard with the grass grew around it. They just mowed around that. And they get approved and instantaneously for $30,000 worth of work done.
Absolutely. That's a huge, huge point you're making right now, that anyone watching or listening, if you haven't sold financing before, we all have a preconceived notion about different customers. Every driveway we drive up to is 100% true. over and over again. Literally goes both ways. You do not know where they stand. You're just there to provide a service, and the best way you can do that is such a good point. Such a good point.
Yeah. And so the mentality for everybody listening, you got to walk into that home. Again, it's not about the home and the customer. It's about you and your show. You're not there to sell them a product. You're there to solve a problem and make a friend, right? And anything along the way that throws a wrench into the engine, you need to see what's out there that can help me avoid that wrench throw, right? So the seamless technology, the delivering the same show night after night to get that standing ovation is what you should be focused on, not what the customer's house looks like, not what your interpretation of that car in the driveway, not the 1970s printed couch when you walk in. That's not what you're there for. You're there to perform. You're there to do a show and solve a problem for somebody. And if you walk out without them offering up to recommend all their friends and family, you haven't done your best, right? And my job in this little portion of your day is to make sure that show is just smooth and you can help as many people as possible and deliver the best show that you can.
Yeah. Everybody loves that dopamine hit when you make the sale.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so much better whenever you can. I've seen it over and over again. I'm sure you have too, where when they know they want to finance something and they get approved, literally the sigh of relief goes down and you get another sense of satisfaction because they have a major problem that they can't afford with cash.
Right.
And you just help solve their problem. We sold so many jobs because of where I was. It was mostly retail. And then our second office was, we still treated insurance jobs and roofing like retail. But there's just so you probably already know this, but the insurance industry is changing drastically. And a lot of these, watch for the next kind of 24 to 48 months, a lot of these insurance restoration contractors are going to have to learn selling insurance as retail. And the only way to do that is finance those jobs because the deductibles are getting so high. And I had to do this we live around a bunch of military guys.
Yeah.
They had super small little houses with like $14,000 roofs with $9,000 deductibles. And these guys don't like, I was the only contractor to provide the financing solution and literally made a friend. And this captain is calling all of his guys and we sold like the whole neighborhood because I solved their problem. And it was obviously it was great. We made sales. But their houses had holes in them, huge holes in their vinyl siding and their roofs. And it was like, if you want to help people, this is the way to do it. Moving forward, this is the way. You have to learn how to sell financing and do it with good platforms that actually know how to meet that homeowner where they are in their credit worthiness.
It's funny. I have 7 children and 3 of them are triplets. They're 19. So I've got, I think 4 in college right now, 1 graduated and married, and I've got 2 high schoolers. But when they were little, I took great pride in when they asked me, what do you do for a living? And I'm pretty sure to this day, not one of them can actually explain in detail what I do. But I would come home and just say, well, I helped another person today.
Yep.
And that's how they describe it. My dad helps people. Well, what does he do? Well, it has something to do with home improvement. They don't know it's a software. They don't know I'm the senior vice president and built this product with a group of incredibly intelligent people. They just know that my job is to help people in need, right? And that satisfaction alone that my kids think that way. And hopefully your listeners are that proud when they come home. I mean, I have one of my sons that him and one of his best friends, and this is a woman, and they're going to HVAC tech school and they want to open up their own HVAC company. They understand the fact that I can make several $100,000 a year running this company. It's
the
going to be
service tech. Just so you know, the service tech that came to our house, he's come to our house several times. We're in Georgia. This is really low income. We become good acquaintances because we're kind of from the same area. He makes $200,000 as a service tech.
And that goes far in Atlanta or in the whole Georgia.
In the rural Georgia, you basically, he bought it's crazy. Like it's basically making $400,000 or $500,000 in any metropolitan area. And the average income, he's making 3 to 4 times the average income as a service tech for a huge HVAC company. He doesn't even own his business. And I just side note that
No,
is encouraging to see.
very. So I'll even, and this is for the old guys listening. When I was at Sears in the 1990s, and I was the regional manager for HVAC for the Southeast, I had Atlanta, I had the Carolinas, I had Florida. So I had Muncie, Muncie Valdosta, I had Augusta, Georgia, I had Columbia, South Carolina. These are not major markets, folks, for anybody that's not familiar with this part of the country. And they were the top 5 sales reps out of 1,000 in the United States. And we're talking in the mid to late 1990s, making $250,000 to $300,000 a year as salespeople.
That's
And
crazy.
they understood back then, it wasn't more of the technology, but they understood the whole, it's my show, it's my Broadway show. And what they did is kind of like you did. You helped that Army gentleman out. It started out, the salesman in South Carolina and Columbia helped a reverend out, and a Baptist reverend. And I remember him telling me, he goes, I told him, anybody from his congregation he sends my way, I'm going to donate $100 of my commission to your church. By the time he worked for me, every church in South Carolina, every Baptist church in South Carolina was on his payroll. So when I said, hey, we're going to send you 5 leads today, I'm like, no, send it to the other guy. My leads are way better than your marketing stuff. These are just coming to me. And that's how these guys did it, because their show was so good. They helped everybody regardless of financial situation. And they worked with their community and became a huge part of that. I'd like to think now that we're so far down the road with technology and it's not going to go away. Our product is artificial intelligence driven, all of that. I just want it to be a piece of that show for those outstanding guys that understand I'm here to help you, give you the same show I give everybody else. And that's where I'm going to go home and tell my kids, I did put on the show today. I helped another person, and that will make those children as proud as mine are of me.
Yep. I love that. We've been talking the past couple of weeks about, in general, just career choices with my kids. My kids are young, but right now they see dad making videos, which is hilarious because I was a roofing contractor forever. It's like, they're like, what do you do, Dad? I don't know. And so there's Cody Sanchez. I don't know if you know who that is. Cody Sanchez she's kind of like an influencer, but she buys boring businesses. And so she's an entrepreneur that's really, really smart. But basically, I'm going to mess up the quote perfectly, but I'll paraphrase. Basically, if your parents know exactly what you do for a living, you're not taking enough risk. You're not pushing yourself far enough. So if you can define, and that's not for every career. I mean, if you're a doctor, you're a doctor. If I do find the people that push the limit of the definition of what they do, it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Is like, my parents asked me for 35, 40 years, they would ask me, what do you want to do I just want to help people. And you can make a great living in sales in any organization. And if you put on the show with the right mindset, an honest mindset, you can help lots of people and make a good living. And I think that a lot of people, what I see when I do some coaching with roofing contractors is that they're either they're one of 2 buckets. They're either sales reps that want to start their own roofing company, or they are production guys that they know how to build the best roof ever and they're amazing at that. That's just 2 parts of the business. You have to be all encompassing as a business owner to actually have a mission to help people. It's not about sales. It's not about production. There's at least 5 to 7 components, depending on who you ask, of any business. And at the base of it all, at the foundation, it has to be, you want to help people. Like, if you want to go help the next person and you want to instill that as a leader, that's who's successful. You watch all these other guys and the turnover rate is crazy in roofing. I mean, it's like, if your focus is not that piece of it, you're not going to last very long. And that goes for any business. But I find it very fascinating to watch businesses grow with the right intent. And they know how to pivot. They know how to sell the right way. They know how to use tools like financing. And that's how you help people. The foundation is still helping people. We can make more sales, obviously, make more money. But if you know that if I was sitting in their shoes, I wouldn't want to pay $25,000 for this roof right now. I'd rather have a payment. And if that's your mindset, you will be able to help people a lot more.
Plus, you got to have fun too, right? That's the other thing. I see a lot of folks that get into this business and they don't like the human interaction part of it, et cetera. But you touched on it. It is so much more rewarding to help a person, right? And make that friend while you're there at that house than it is just to work for a living, right? And even if you're the guy that sells it and has to go put the roof on, there's ways to
Yep.
make that fun for you and that customer and enjoy the experience. And I think that's a huge part of it. Technology is making some of those the 7 things that you say you have to be focused on. Technology is making a lot of that stuff easier, but it can never change how you approach your day, right? That's on you. You got to
Mhm.
have your favorite coffee every morning. You have to have that mindset that I'm going to go make my kids proud today by helping another person. And that's an attitude that's carried me through multiple decades. And the other part of it for the business owners that are listening to your podcast, I hate to use a phrase that's been kicked around for decades also, but servant leadership is so important. And I'm not the most imposing figure. I'm 5'6" on a good day with the wind at my back. You know what I mean? And now I'm getting old and feeble, but every time I hire somebody, during the interview process or upon their onboarding, I always explain to them that at the end of the day, I'm not successful and I can't make the money that I want to make for my family unless you are wildly successful.
Hmm.
So I work for you. It's a servant leadership position, the inverted pyramid, whichever catchphrase you want to use. But I let these guys know my job is to make you more money. Do you want to make an extra 10, 15, $20,000 a year? Leave it to me. Let me show you how to do that. And that's by really taking that customer to heart. This is going to be my new friend today. I'm going to help out this family. I'm going to pet the dog. I'm going to laugh with the kids. I'm just going to have fun, and to me, anything I can do to help someone, including help develop the greatest financing software solution for all those problems, I'm on board, because that's just going to help these guys make more money. And that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so interesting you just talked about that. We talked about servant leadership quite a bit the past 7 to 10 days. We just had the ProLine just had a strategic planning weekend getaway, and it was really intense. But we talked about servant leadership, really important for any organization. If you can embrace that mindset as a sales rep, any position you're in, if you're an owner or not, be a servant leader and you will win. You will achieve the goals that you want that are outside of service by doing the service. It is something that is not easy for some people to do. We do a disc assessment. Have you ever done a disc assessment
Yeah,
before?
actually I have. I find it fascinating.
It's very, very fascinating. If you haven't done one, there's a bunch of different personality tests, but we do disc assessment. I'm very much team player. I want people to win.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I'm not necessarily like your traditional D-driven person that wants to just sell, sell, sell. I love it when our team wins. For the roofing business and ProLine, it's like a huge driver for me. And so I know that if I serve them well, they'll win. And then I will feel that hit. It's the same kind of dopamine hit. It's like they won in whatever perspective thing they did. I'm always talking about, if you care about your employees and you want to achieve a certain thing, think about what their day looks like.
Yeah.
And you said do you drink your favorite coffee in the morning? What's your morning routine like? Do you get to take your kids to school? What does that look like? When do you get home? What does your week look like? Do you get to go? Do you want to coach their soccer? What does that look like? And if you're thinking like that, then all the other stuff will happen. Exactly how if you want to talk about the money things, it will happen because you just created an organization that knows that you care about them and knows not just about the money part. It's about how you live your life. We spend a lot of time in our careers for every day. It better be a good day, is more than not. They're really hard days, but you better be working with people that want to have a good day, that choose to have a good day. And hopefully your leaders are being servant minded as well.
I'd assume that your roofing company was like a family, like everybody.
Yeah, it is very, very close knit. Genuinely cared about my team very, very much. Yes.
So I've helped fix a couple mindsets over the years, and because I have 7 kids and have that kind of parenting practice, especially with 3 coming at one time, I look at the way that I cherish the relationship with those kids. I don't tell my children what to do. I try to teach them to be a better version of me, because that's where my most experience lies. Everything I tell them is based on the experiences that I've had. Avoid this, do this instead. Right. So I'm building that person up. And I've seen, I think, posters that say this, but I'm the only person probably in the world that wants them to be better than.
Yeah, that's the sign of a good dad. A good dad is the only person in the world that wants their child to be better than them. Yeah.
Right. And you got to approach your business, even if you're the last level of line management in your company, treat that as your family. I want these people to be better. And I have a line that I've used probably for 20 years now, but if the people below you make more money than before you or after you got there, everything else just works, right? And I'm a huge believer in what you put out in the universe comes back tenfold. Right. So if you teach these people, it's not about the product or service. I've never sold a product or a service in my life. I've sold myself and my company's reputation and brand. If it's about that, it's about the show and it's about helping those people. And then the people that are below you, helping them get better. It used to be weird. I mean, as a manager in my 20s for big billion-dollar companies, going out and telling these people, I want you to make more money than me. That's my goal. You need to make more than your manager or I suck at
love
my
that you say that. I tell people that all the time and they're like, what? I'm like, yes, that's actually the point. It's actually the point. If you're talking about the money side of things, it drives me crazy when it's the opposite. And guess what? They don't last very long, those organizations. I love that you said that.
Well, the guy in South Carolina that I'm just still in awe of 25 years later invited me to his house for a steak dinner after a day of ride-alongs. I wasn't expecting this, but I basically pulled up to a repurposed plantation with white pillars, right? And his wife answered the door with a cigar and a drink and said, Phil's expecting you. He's on the back patio with his friends. And Phil O'Kelly, Irish name, right? He's obviously a white gentleman. And I walk out on the back patio and it was people of color was the whole party except for the whitest guy, looked like Colonel Sanders standing in the middle. And that's when I learned about the Baptist church situation in Carolina. He was the most trusted person for them because he treated them with such respect, gave them such a show. They made friends. And now they were coming for the cookout that his manager traveled from Jacksonville, Florida, up to South Carolina to do ride-alongs and critique him. All we did was have fun all day. I couldn't make him better. He's already making more money than his boss. I was there just to be a friend, a support, find out what he needs from me. What do you need? What can I do today to help you? That's all, I'm your tool. Let me know. And that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And again, I think that was 25 years ago, but that team in the Southeast, what a joy that was. Taught me so much because again, they're making more money than me. So they certainly weren't open to some young guy coming in and telling them what to do, but that's not how I approached it. Right. And they certainly appreciated that service, that servant leadership. And then when I got back to my office in Jacksonville, my job was to take the checklist of things that person needed to be even more successful. And that was the first order of business the next day. Right. So
love it.
It's all attitude. Life is so much better when having fun.
Yes. Yeah. And and a lot of people, it's a choice. It's hard. Life is hard. Business is hard. Sales can be hard, but it is a choice to choose to have fun.
Yeah. So,
well, Mike, we've talked about, we've solved all the world's problems.
Yes.
We've done it.
I can't imagine what else I have. I will throw this out there just for fun and giggles here. For all the roofers listening, keep a stethoscope, a doctor's or nurse's stethoscope in your bag. And when you're doing your needs analysis with the customer, and then you want to do your site survey and take a look, make measurements, maybe you're using software today. I won't mention brands because I'm brand agnostic, but there's ways that you can satellite look down and take pictures and do all of that great. Pick something random like the refrigerator and just whip out the stethoscope and start listening into places on the refrigerator. Then go to the stove. If they haven't said anything, don't say a word until the customer says something. And then when they finally go, what are you doing? Just turn around and say, I'm just messing with you, and put it back in the bag. It is just so much more fun for them. Their guard goes down. Hilarious. Yeah, it's just, it's the most unexpected thing in the world is to have a stethoscope on a roofing visit.
I love that.
It's fun times. Have fun. Enjoy your job. This is a great way for you to support your family and help people every day. Approach it with that attitude. Look for products out there like a ProLine, like a Skeps that makes it easier for you to put on a great show and help a customer today. And that's the best advice I could give you.
I love it. Well, seriously, thanks. It was a great conversation. I love it. I love these kind of conversations. Getting to meet you and learn about your life and your process. And we share a lot of the same values. So I appreciate it. I hope everybody watching and listening also understands that this is it's supposed to be fun. It's a fun thing. So again, thanks for watching the Big Roofs podcast. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone.